Welcome to the Well Seasoned Librarian Podcast. You're tuning into Season 16, Episode 12, and today, host Dean Jones is thrilled to chat with special guest and popular vlogger Bob Morano. Bob, a 2005 graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, brings over 2 decades of experience from professional kitchens across both the East and West Coasts. Currently, he's not only the executive chef at a monastery, but also a teacher and the creative force behind the social media sensation, Every Day is Feast Day. On his platform, Bob serves up fascinating culinary history, intriguing food facts, and a wealth of cooking videos featuring delicious recipes, helpful tips, and candid insights into the hospitality prot, industry, and kitchen life. Known for his friendly, welcoming demeanor, easy-to-follow cooking instructions, and all-around nice guy vibes, Bob has become a beloved and engaging presence in the world of online culinary content. Now, without further ado, let's join Dean as he dives in the conversation with Chef Bob Morano.
Welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking with chef and social media star Bob Morano. Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dean. I'm excited to do this here.
Bob, for our listeners who are just meeting you, can you talk about your career and where you're from?
Yes, I grew up in a town called Wappingers Falls. It's in the Hudson Valley in New York. I grew up most of my life there. I went to the Culinary Institute of America. And then after graduating there, I had a job opportunity out in San Francisco. So we were dating at the time, but my wife now, we picked up and moved out there and wanted to do that life experience. We both worked out there for about 6 years, and we always knew we wanted to come back home. All of our family is here. We wanted to come back home and have the kids and have the house and do all that kind of stuff and settle back in the Hudson Valley in New York. So that's sort of like where I grew up. And then along the way, obviously, we'll get into it a little bit, I think, is working in different culinary adventures along the way.
Yeah, with that, you have over 20 years in professional kitchens, which is pretty, impressive. You were on the East and West Coast, as you said. What has been the most significant difference you've observed in the culinary scenes in that time period?
Some of that is a little bit tough to pinpoint. They both have their sort of their avenues and their styles. I will say, I'm sort of biased to the East Coast being from here. But to me, I feel like I don't know whether it's on the East Coast, we have more harsh winters.
Right.
And I feel like maybe that adds a little bit to the food culture. As far as the East Coast, to me, at least, having a little bit more like gritty food culture.
Mm-hmm.
Both places are a complete melting pot of cultures and people from other countries and all of that. They have their little different flares, but to me, that's the biggest, if that makes sense.
Yeah. With the popularity of a lot of cooking TV and shows like The Bear, a lot of younger people are thinking about going into cooking as a career field. Looking back at your graduation from the Culinary Institute of America, what's one piece of advice you'd offer your younger self if you were just starting out now?
I would tell myself to always show up, be present, not show up in, the physical sense, but be present, be available to learn, and make yourself available to the people that know more than you do. So it would be continue to show up every day, be present, make yourself available to learn and absorb things, and just put in the time. Like many things and ventures, you're going to start at one point and you never quite, you kind of build the ladder. You can't start anywhere but the bottom.
That reminds me very much what your answer made me think about your social media work. And one of the things that really caught me immediately when I started watching you and immediately became a fan was that you're very present and you seem to have a very good connection. You're there, you're serious, but you're also like really trying, I believe, from the heart to try and teach something. Is this something you kind of took over from your student days?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I think a little bit. The love of teaching really sprouted. Pre-pandemic, I spent some time teaching at a local public school, they had a chef in the classroom program where I would go in to the school once a month, and they would have like a vegetable of the month, and you teach the kids about the vegetable, and you have a lecture and make a little recipe. And I really fell in love with the teaching aspect of it. And I was doing kindergarten through 8th grade. So to see these kids like have never seen, a potato or an eggplant, their eyes light up. We're cracking eggs, we're, doing all these fun cooking projects. And then you really see the connection from the teaching aspect to kids getting involved in food that results in them making more of their own food, whether they take a recipe home and they make it with mom and dad or grandma and grandpa or whatever the case is. But I would say during that point in time, I have always loved teaching. Part of working in this industry is educational and teaching the next generation. But I think I really fell in love with the teaching aspect of it, doing that chef in the classroom program.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows your love of teaching. It really shows through because there's a real engaged warmth when you see you on social media, and it's very inviting, and it makes you want to watch more of it.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, one of the things I really just try to be, you're getting me, like that's just myself. It's not a character or anything like that. So that's one of the things I really is to try to stay true in the things that I make. That it's really me. If you met me in real life, hopefully you would see the same person.
In addition to the social media stuff that I know you from the most, you're also the executive chef at a monastery, which sounds thrilling. That's a really unique path. How did you transition to this role from more traditional professional kitchens?
I almost found it by accident. I forget exactly who. Someone I knew found the job listing and sent it to me. Just said, "Hey, I saw this near where you live. Maybe it's something you might want to check out." And at the time, I had come on to a company. We started a scratch food program for daycares and elementary schools where we were making from scratch food for their lunches and then delivering them to the schools. So we had like a centralized kitchen, and we had just essentially gone out of business. So I was looking for something job wise, and my work at this previous company provided me sort of a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 kind of experience. And I had just become a new father at the time. So when I went and inquired about this job at the monastery, it was a similar sort of 9 to 5, not real restaurant hours as far as late nights and things like that. So that piece of it was very appealing to me. Because I obviously did not want to go back into that lifestyle if I didn't have to, having experienced this new sort of like dad, normal business hour lifestyle. So I think that was the initial attraction to it. And then getting in there, it's a fun culture to be in.
Well, to pick up more on that, what's a day in the life like as an executive chef in a monastery? And how does that different from a regular kitchen?
The best comparison I could make is if you're listening out there and you've worked in a catering operation, we're very similar to a catering operation as far as like if you don't know more a catering operation via a restaurant specific, catering, you're making the food, you're serving it to sort of like family style, and it's a different type of environment than a more, a restaurant where you're preparing dishes and then people will come into the door as they arrive for their tables and you're working to make their meals. Where with catering and where I am at environmentally, you're making sort of like larger batches of food, you're serving it family style. I would say at the monastery, it's a sort of much more laid back environment. It's still fast paced. We still work very hard, but it's just a much more laid back environment. And then I would say one of the biggest sort of things that happens at the monastery is that all of the major holidays, we have like big feasts. So in the restaurant world, that's like the odd thing is like usually Christmases and Thanksgivings, most restaurants will be closed, you'll be off, but it's like every other day of the year, cooks are working. Where the rest of the year, my schedule is a lot more lax than a restaurant, but during the holiday season is like, I disappear to work. That's my busy time.
Picking up on the word feast, I wanted to go to your title of your social media presence, Every Day is Feast Day, which is a name I love. What inspired you to start creating content and launch it under that name?
Well, thanks. Yeah, it actually came as sort of a joke between my wife and I, where if anyone is familiar with the religious sort of structure, um, there are days that are recognized on religious calendars as feast days. So they celebrate a certain event or whatever coincides with that religion. And then there'll be sort of a celebratory meal. So those are more, where I work, they're almost like Sundays at grandma's house. It'll be like a roast and a potato, very traditional sort of feast days. So we sort of had this inside joke at my house where I would say, oh, tomorrow's a feast day. And my wife would joke and say, well, every day is a feast day. So it just kind of sprouted from there. And then as we would say it more and more, it was like, oh, that's kind of a cool name to, it kind of rolls off the tongue. And then it also explains a little bit my own in that, like, aside from food, if you watch a bunch of my content, I personally have lost a lot of weight, and it kind of goes along with, like, every day is an opportunity for whatever you want. Essentially, is kind of like the behind the scenes meaning. But the story from where it came from was the monastery with those feast days and sort of that inside joke between my wife and
I wanted to talk about that a little bit because you cover a lot of different things in your social media presence. You talk about culinary history, you do instructional cooking. What is your favorite of the content to do?
I think my favorite pieces of content, you were describing like the word of the day that I do, which is
Yeah.
kind of outside of the kitchen, and I very much enjoy them primarily because it provides me to do research on these topics. So in many of them, I'm learning new things, and then I'm just casting out to the internet space kind of what I've learned for my research on those. So those are a lot of fun to do. But I think my favorite pieces to make are the sort of the kind of the education heavy pieces. A lot of them don't do as well as some of the more trendy, sort of easily digestible things, but I really like the sort of feel and branding of having kind of like a resource, which is kind of like what got me started in making content like this, is that I saw the ability to be able to turn it into a resource for people. So a lot of these some of these videos may not be popular topics, but if you see fennel in the grocery store and you go, oh, what can I do with fennel? I have a bunch of videos on recipes to do with fennel. They're not very popular, but they're there for people. It's like a sort of a living cookbook, kind of is my inspiration into doing some of these videos. And it also it's become a space where I get to make like what I want, when I want, how I want, and not sort of, I don't follow a lot of the trendy sort of things. I make what I want to make in those moments.
The the content you do on social media is really well done because you offer up cooking instruction and other bits of information in a nice, succinct package that's very well handled. How did you choose to do it in that method, meaning Instagram and TikTok, as opposed to, say, longer YouTube videos or other types of media?
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think initially it was as simple as like YouTube seemed at the time. YouTube seemed like more of a destination. In the moment when I started, it seemed more than I could sort of bite off, like more than I could bite off to chew, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where some of these shorter little videos, it started with my love of teaching. Over the pandemic, they closed down that program that I taught at the elementary school, and they never sort of reopened it. And I really missed it. So I developed this love of teaching. I've worked in the food industry my entire professional life. And I really saw a space where people are making less and less of their own food at home. And you get things like, diabetes and obesity and like all these health issues that come with it, aside from just the bonds that we make as human beings when we cook together and eat together and those type of things. So I think that was the early driver of making this content that I was making.
I wanted to ask next too that obviously with TikTok and Instagram, there's a lot of like fan following and engagement on there. What has been your experience with some of I mean, you have a fan base. What's been your experience with some of the feedback that you've gotten and then people commenting?
I generally speaking, it's been very, people have been very receptive to it. But you do, like, I've noticed big time, as you climb in numbers, it just becomes that sort of a game of percentages. Is, a certain percentage of people are just, and again, you never know where they're coming from. Maybe they're having a bad day, they woke up, whatever the case is. But when a certain number of eyes are on your things, there's a certain percentage of people that are just going to be either negative or nasty or whatever the case is. But generally speaking, it's been very well receptive, and it makes it a lot of fun. I think there is a lack of sort of like these 90s cooking shows that used to exist from professional food people. And we used to have people, like the Emeril Lagasse's and the Bobby Flays and now a lot of things now have moved to these competition shows, but we're getting people where, like, I grew up with Alton Brown and Emeril Lagasse and all these people that had these instructional cooking shows. So I'm 43. So now people who grew up with these are now my age, and they also have kids, many of them. And the space doesn't really exist for these style of cooking shows anymore.
I want to ask next, I really enjoy your content, and I find it very engaging and very something I can really recommend to other people. I always say, I always like to share your content. Have you gotten any let's say offers or any kind of shout outs from publishers or TV companies?
I have not. You get shout. I would say other content creators. There's sort of a network of support, and it's like other content creators will shout your stuff out, or I think they call it like a stitch sometimes, where they'll stitch you in and they'll make a video in response to your thing. But and I'll get people who, currently I think I have about 1 million followers across all platforms. I put all these videos everywhere, but I'll get different types of attention or shout outs from accounts that are massive in comparison to mine. And especially there are ones that I follow and I like, and we kind of interact with each other. And it's become this sort of like, it's this communal respect of people. It's almost like this unwritten approval. It feels like an approval, like these accounts that I respect as a food industry person, and sort of the information that I'm putting out, they're sort of giving their stamp of approval in that. But I have not yet, to answer your question, I have not really gotten contacted by any sort of publications or TV things or network things, anything like that.
Has anybody recognized you on the street?
No. I will say I like some of my daughter's friends, but it's like I watch your dad's stuff or things like that. But not just blindly, walking down the street and somebody goes, "Oh, hey, you're the guy in the." I haven't, no.
With all the we have a lot of social media presence talking about cooking and working in restaurants, and we have TV shows like The Bear. What do you think the general misconceptions people have about working in professional kitchens based on some of this TV work is like? Do you have anything that have any feedback you have from people that maybe people taking it the wrong way or not really understanding how kitchens work based on TV shows?
That's an interesting question. I think there are many things. Luckily, I would say we are kind of in a place where many people at some point in their life have worked in a service industry in some capacity. So they sort of understand the dynamic between service worker and customer, which can, 99% of the time is a mutual, relationship. But people are aware of those small periods of time where it's not so desirable to be in, which I think the more people that experience that, I feel like, as a general statement, the better human society could be if we're all aware of our, like, when we're not at our best, maybe. Yeah. But I would say, but specific things can be, one of the things that we brought up, my wife gets quite a bit, or I'll get every once in a while, is, "Oh, you must eat so well at home. When you go home, you must eat so great." And cooks are not, it's like, luckily I eat much healthier today because I'm able to plan things. But, when you're a young cook, it's like peanut butter and jelly and cereal and sandwiches. And you get home, it's like just trying to get something in.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
That's definitely one. And I think just the not to sound, not to be in like a complaining aspect, but probably the physical amount of work that goes into what people do, specifically in the food industry. Just the sheer amount of labor that is involved in doing these things. And it's a range. Some people work, they're in a union and they work their 8 hours a day, but even those 8 hours a day it's demanded that they are compact full of everything you need to get done. Where on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have places where, I've worked in places where you're working 100+ hours a week, or I worked at one place, they ended up getting in trouble, but we were working 100+ hours a week, but they would only pay us for like 50 hours a week. We were only allowed to clock in for those hours. So they would tell you, and the chef would keep a stack of resumes in the kitchen, so as a visual reminder, like there's all these people that want to come work here.
Yeah.
But so it was kind of like that untold, like, they never told us you must work this much, but everybody knew you had your workload that needed to get done.
Yeah.
I think little things like that people don't have an insight into. Another fun thing that I thought of was washing things, like washing chicken and washing like a lot of vegetables. Restaurants are not washing chicken. I think people a lot of times have kind of preconceived notions in their head of the things they do at home when they cook, that restaurants must be doing these things. And I've made numerous pieces of content on the washing chicken, and even from the standpoint of the health department on washing chicken, on how you're much more likely to get on a harmful bacteria on other surfaces from washing chicken, and what tap water is not a disinfectant. It does nothing. And also restaurants are not washing broccoli, sometimes there are physical dirt, but restaurants are not taking that time to do those things. It's a very fast paced sort of environment, and you're getting things done. And I would say sort of the ranking of kitchen operations and kitchen positions, mostly in how protective cooks and chefs are over, say, like their dish crew.
Yeah.
It's I think people have some, and not that it's common, but people have this thing like the chef is the worshipped guy, and everybody else. And some places it is very much that, but you'll never find any kitchen where anybody will be like, where any chef or cook will let anything get between them and like a good productive dish crew, because they are the most important piece in a kitchen, and you do everything in your power. Especially the higher up you go, you gain more power. You do everything in your power to make sure they're happy. Everything's getting done. They're on time to work. Somebody needs a ride. Somebody misses a bus. The car breaks down, whatever. You're leaving and you're going to pick them up. You're going to make sure you're going to make sure they have support. You're going to make sure they're not, overworked or mad, the guy quits or something like that. And now this guy's overworked. You're going to do everything in your power, like, call up a friend, I've worked in places where we've literally gone out on the street in a city and try to find somebody, say, hey, can't you, come make $100 and wash some dishes, so these guys are not like overloaded and things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're bringing back memories. Bob, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed getting to talk to you. We're going to have links in the bio for people to go and find your social media platform for every day is a feast day. And I want to recommend that heartily because I'm a big fan. Bob, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a blast.
Thanks for tuning in to Season 16, Episode 12 of the Well Seasoned Librarian Podcast. We hope you enjoy Dean's conversation with the incredible chef Bob Morano. Connect with Every Day is Feast Day. You can catch all the links to Bob's amazing work on Every Day is Feast Day right in our bio. Explore his culinary history deep dives, fascinating food facts, and a treasure trove of cooking videos, recipes, and insights into the hospitality world. And of course, we will see you at the library.